Hey there, you cool cats and kittens. This is Mrs. Fry bringing you today's math lesson. Now, yesterday we learned about polynomial long division, which is a method that we can use to divide a polynomial by a binomial. It has a lot of steps to it, and it's really easy to get mixed up. It's kind of tricky. That's why we have another method called synthetic division. The word synthetic, it means fake. So what we're actually doing here is fake division. We are going to be dividing, but without the actual process of dividing. It's a shortcut method for dividing a polynomial by a linear factor of the form x minus r, which means it has to be a binomial for this to work. This method, it requires fewer calculations and less writing by representing the polynomial and the linear factor as a set of numerical values. Okay, so what that means is we're going to be taking out the x's and we're just going to be using the coefficients, the numbers in front of the variables. Okay, so let's go ahead and set up a problem and see what to do. The first thing that you need to do is we are going to draw like an upside down division box. That's what I like to do. Okay, and then notice I have an x to the third, which means that would be a 1, and I'm going to write that on the inside of here, the invisible 1 that would go here. And then negative 3, this negative x would be a negative 1, and then 3. And then we're dividing that by x minus 1. Now, we're not going to be using a negative 1. What we have to do is set this equal to 0. X minus 1 equals 0, and we're going to solve for x, and that's going to tell us what number to use. So when I add 1 to both sides, that makes it x equals 1. Where do I put that 1? Well, we're going to put it on the outside of our little upside down box here. Now, this is the fun part. I really think synthetic division is a lot of fun. It's just following a pattern, which is multiplying, then adding, multiplying, then adding. Okay, so the first thing you'll do is just drop down this 1, and then we're going to multiply what's on the outside. 1 times 1 is 1, and we'll just place that underneath the negative 3. And then add negative 3 plus 1. That's negative 2. Whoa. Then we're going to multiply again. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. And we write that underneath of the negative 1. And then add negative 1 plus negative 2 is negative 3. And then finally, the last step would be to multiply 1 times negative 3. And that is negative 3. Just write that underneath the negative 3. And then we'll add 3 plus negative 3, and that's 0. And I always put a box kind of like around that last number so I know that's the end. And if I would get any number other than 0 in that box, that means it's a remainder. But because I did get 0, that means there's no remainder here. Now I need to write my answer. To write my answer, I have to put the variables back in. Those are the x's. So if I have a 1, that would be an x squared. There's no 1 x squared. We don't need to put the 1. And we always would do 1 less than what I already have written up here, x to the third. So 1 less than x to the third would be x squared. So I'll put my answer as x squared. And then we just write this in descending order. Minus 2x minus 3. That's your answer, x squared minus 2x minus 3. Isn't that so much easier than doing the polynomial long division? And I think it's fun. Okay, so let's do a couple more because these go so fast. The next one is x to the third minus 9x squared plus 8x plus 60 divided by x minus 5. So draw your upside down division box here. X to the third would just be 1. There's an invisible 1 here. And then put minus 9, the 8, and the 60. And we can even draw this box at the bottom. Then I need to take what I'm dividing by, x minus 5, and set that equal to 0. Add 5 to both sides so I can solve for x, and that makes it x equals 5. So that means I should put a 5 on the outside here. That's the number you're going to be multiplying by every time. Now I'm going to draw an arrow to show that I'm dropping down this 1. And then you multiply what's on the outside, add what's on the inside. So 5 times 1 is 5, and I'll place that 5 underneath the negative 9. Then you'll add negative 9 plus 5. That's negative 4. Then multiply. 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. Write that underneath the 8. And then add 8 plus negative 20. That's negative 12. And then finally multiply 5 times negative 12. That's negative 60. and 60 plus negative 60 is 0. So again, just like with the last one, I got a 0 at the very last blank, which means there's no remainder. And then to write my answer, because I have a 1, that means that would just be like a 1x squared. So x squared, it's always 1 less than what we started with. So since I started with x to the third, that means I'd put x squared, and then this would be minus 4x. Remember, we're writing this in standard form in descending order, and then minus 12. X squared minus 4x minus 12, that is the answer. Super fun, right? Let's do another one. 2x to the third plus 7x squared minus 10x minus 24. So just start out drawing this upside down division box. And then I'll put 2, 7, negative 10, negative 24. That goes in the inside. 2, 7, negative 10, negative 24. And then if I'm dividing by x plus 3, I'll take x plus 3, set that equal to 0, and solve for x. That tells me what number to put on the outside. So subtract 3 on both sides, and that's x equals negative 3. Now let's put that negative 3 over here on the outside. Negative 3 is what you're going to multiply by every time. We multiply on the outside of this box and add on the inside. Drop down this 2, and then we'll multiply. Negative 3 times 2, that's negative 6. Put that underneath of the 7. Then we'll add 7 plus negative 6. You guys know that's 7 minus 6, right? So that's 1. Then we're going to multiply again. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Put that underneath the negative 10. And then add negative 10 plus negative 3. That's negative 13. Then multiply negative 3 times negative 13. A negative times a negative is a positive, so that's positive 39. And we put that underneath of the negative 24. And then you'll add negative 24 plus 39 is 15. So this time around, I do have a remainder. Okay, so first let's go ahead and write out our answer, and you do want to write your remainder in fractional form. Okay, so since I started with an x to the third, that means this should be 1 less, which is x squared. But I have a number this time, a 2. So this is 2x squared plus 1x. You don't need to write down the 1, so just put plus x minus 13, and the remainder is 15. To write that in fractional form, you'll make it plus 15 over, and that's what you're dividing by, x plus 3. And that's your answer, 2x squared plus x minus 13 plus 15 over x plus 3. So far, so good. Let's just do one more problem. I wanted to do one more problem that starts with an x to the fourth, just because it's going to have one extra number, but everything stays the same. Draw that upside down division bar, and then this would be a 1, negative 2, this is technically a negative 1, negative 4, and negative 6. Then to figure out what we're going to put on the outside, the number that you're going to be multiplying by every time, we'll take x plus 2, set that equal to 0, subtract 2 from both sides, and that makes it x equals negative 2. So that means I'll put a negative 2 on the outside of this box. Now I'll drop down this 1, and then you'll start out by multiplying. You just follow that same pattern every time. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. You just want to write that underneath of this other negative 2, and then we can add those together. Negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4. Then multiply again. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. You want to write that underneath the negative 1. Then add negative 1 plus 8. You guys know that's really like 8 minus 1, right? So that's 7. Then multiply negative 2 times 7. That's negative 14. Make sure you write it underneath of the negative 4. And then add negative 4 plus negative 14. That's negative 18. And then this is our last multiplying step. Negative 2 times negative 18 is 36. Positive 36. And then finally add negative 6 plus 36, which is, 36 minus 6. That's 30. That's the remainder. We do have a remainder on this one. Okay, so we're going to start out with a 1x to the third. Now, why is this one x to the third? All the other problems were x squared. Well, that's because our other problem started out with an x to the third up here in our original problem. You always want to do one less than what you've started with. So because I started with x to the fourth, one less would be x to the third, right? And then minus 4x squared, so we're just going in descending order. Then this would be plus 7x minus 18, and then you want to write your remainder in fractional form. That would be plus 30 over x plus 2, and that is your final answer. Wasn't that fun? I love synthetic division. Just something about following a pattern, doing the same thing over and over again. I just think it's a lot of fun. Okay, so I do have 2 problems for you to try out on your own tonight. The first problem that I gave you here, this one's not going to have a remainder. And the second problem, this one will have a remainder. I'll write that down. No remainder. And this one does have a remainder. Okay, so that'll help you out whenever you are working those out. And I want you to text me your answers on Remind. Hope you have a great day. Bye.